Okay, way to start the morning off with a bang, huh? I always love that panel. They always keep it really fun, entertaining, edgy, healthy debates. So really cool. That was an amazing way to set the tone, start the morning. Before we get into some deeper, heavier topics, and I wanted to make a comment about yesterday I wore a golden shimmery blazer, which represented the golden era of innovation, of all of these beautiful ideas blossoming into fruition. Now we're in this point in the market where we have all this crazy cool innovation, kind of like when the internet started. And today I'm wearing blue, bright blue, to symbolize forwardness, boldness, risk-taking, and the fruit of that innovation. Because I believe that that's really important to highlight. The point we're at in the market is just super special to me, and hearing just everything even that's happening in the green room. I wish you guys could hear all that. I mean, this talk is crazy. It's really cool. They're going into detail about all the things that are happening under the hood that you normally don't get to experience. But now in this panel, you're going to get to see it for yourself. We have a really special panel for you now called Beyond Scaling, the next wave of blockchain innovation. That's what this day is all about, what's next. The tech is ready, so now what's next? I'd like to welcome our speakers, Austin Federa, Head of Strategy, Solana Foundation, Benjamin Minku, CEO and founder of Multiverse X, Dominic Williams, founder and chief scientist of the DFINITY Foundation, and moderator Alejandro Martinez, partner at Foundation Capital. Please give them a big round of applause.
Right.
I have two mics in case I'm not loud enough.
Oh, great.
I was like, ugh. All right, great to be here.
Yeah.
So we've been speaking a lot about scaling in other panels. We're going to move a little bit beyond that and talk about the future of blockchain. So it's been an exciting year. We've had the Bitcoin ETF launched, which has been a huge success, one of the most successful ETFs ever launched. We have had improvements in scalability and starting to see new applications get on the blockchain. But today we're going to talk about the future. So what do we believe is coming in Web3 now? And so we have three panelists here that are going to come at this from very different angles. So let's start there. And before we talk about the future, I think it would be important context setting to discuss what is your philosophy around blockchain and what it should be doing before we talk about the future. So why don't we all have the three of you give your backgrounds and talk a little bit about that. And before that, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Alejandra. I'm an investor at Foundation Capital, focusing on crypto.
Great. I'm Austin Federa. I run strategy at the Solana Foundation. Solana is really focused on scaling the transaction layer and the execution layer of blockchain to its sort of logical conclusions, which is being able to handle, Web 2 scale information loads. One of the main pieces and goals of the project is to keep everything in one global state, to not rely on L2s and scaling solutions like that, or sharding, which I'm sure we'll get into extensively.
100%.
Yes. And sort of the goal of a project like Solana is eventually to have multiple concurrent block producers all around the world, so you don't have these co-location problems where a trader who has access to a server at the New York Stock Exchange has an advantage over a retail trader trading, in Singapore. And so it's about reducing the average latency to equal times all around the world, give markets fair access, and really restructure the entire system of how TradFi works today.
I'm Dominic Williams, founder of Internet Computer Project, long-time engineering entrepreneur, sort of moved into crypto 2013.
Dominic, what is your philosophy around blockchain and what it should be doing for this world?
So we've always seen it kind of differently. So, back in 2014, I was, I think, the first person working on, sharding techniques for blockchain and trying to repurpose classical Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus for the blockchain setting. And I was involved with Ethereum and heard this word world computer, or phrase world computer, and I thought that's a really good idea, And so I pivoted from that initial work I was doing in 2014 to this sort of world computer idea in 2015. Started using the word DFINITY, which is a portmanteau of decentralized infinity, and looking at ways that you can create a blockchain that really is a replacement stack. So, I think Solana's pretty highly optimized for DeFi in many ways, but Internet Computer is designed as a sort of replacement for current IT. So our vision is that third generation blockchain really begins to replace traditional the traditional IT. So yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, we've got today there are social networks running on the blockchain on the Internet Computer. So if you think we've come a very long way, I mean, you've got smart contracts serving HTTP, storing hundreds of gigabytes of data, and we've worked out ways of doing things like remove crypto wallet from the flow. So as a user, you can interact directly with the smart contract that's creating an interactive user experience for you. And you can integrate that kind of thing with kind of DeFi functionality. So we've got to the point now where you can run AI as a smart contract, which is a big advance. I mean, the AIs we're running as smart contracts now are pretty limited. They're like neural networks. You can do image classification. We've got one hopefully coming that can do facial recognition. They're not large language models yet, but that's the direction we're heading. So the idea is you'll be able to have a conversation with the blockchain. And then also we're doing a lot of stuff with multi-chain technology.
So we started diving into this a little bit already, but let's go into 2024. So what are some of the innovations that you're currently working on within your current blockchains, and what are some of the applications that you'll see resulting from those innovations today?
Maybe I'll just touch, because I think this is very useful for all of us here. We've brought to market this new thing that we call sovereign chains, which is just sharded, extrapolated outside, where you have a kind of meta layer that unifies interactions, enables a kind of new shard to exist that's sovereign, that is multi-VM compatible, such that it's compatible with Solana VM and with Internet Protocol and everything that they're using with Ethereum and Bitcoin. And that thing, I think, is extremely powerful because it unifies communities, liquidity, and enables a kind of composability on top that sort of reframes the game from a zero-sum PvP game to a much higher output and value game that I think we've not played up until this point in the space. So we're extremely excited about that. Already have 2 designs for Bitcoin and Ethereum just because of those being the largest ecosystems. But we're super excited to actually have this type of conversations with all the other ecosystems, because a kind of unification or zero-layer interoperability point, and then a kind of acceleration layer. I think everyone will want that, starting with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then every other ecosystem.
And within the multiverse universe, do you see applications surfacing that take advantage of that composability today that weren't possible, let's say, in 2022, 2021?
So we have several applications that are already building on this. Some are actually Solana compatible. So there's a sovereign chain with this type of throughput and performance doing DeFi and stuff. And then they have a kind of multi-VM compatible element that enables them to bridge and do all this type of interaction with Solana. This is super exciting and super interesting. And we have, I think, 5 or 10 projects that are already building on this technology. It was demonstrated and so forth, but they're already in the trenches and super curious where this will go.
Amazing. Why don't we head over to you, Dominic? Could you talk a little bit about what's been happening in the world of Internet Protocol this year, new innovations and new applications that are coming up?
I mean, a lot of our work is just making the Internet Computer faster, more efficient, and so on. And the two, and then there's a lot of kind of like detail work that you don't see that goes on, and some of it's quite technical, but so the things that are kind of easy to understand that you see, that big features, if you like, we're doing a lot of work to optimize the execution environment for AI smart contracts. That's actually quite a big challenge. So, I mean, today there aren't any other blockchains that are running AI, and there's a reason for that. It's pretty tough. And currently, we're just adding things like SIMD, which is single instruction, multiple calculations or something like that. So we're optimizing the execution environment so it can run AI faster. So since I did the first AI demo, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something now, almost got a 10x speed up just by optimizing the environment. So
And all of this is done on chain, right? You don't
yeah,
have an on-chain off.
fully on chain. Yeah. So the next limit is that within the execution environment, on the internet computer, smart contracts run in parallel using a thing called an actor model. And we're running those smart contracts inside WASM, WebAssembly. And each smart contract is a bundle of WebAssembly bytecode and some persistent memory pages. But currently, we're using 32-bit WASM. And anyone who remembers, old enough to remember Windows 95, right? If you've only got 32 bits you've only got 4 gig of memory space. So it turns out that if you have like an AI model with like 2 billion parameters, you need 4 gig. That's the limit of it. So the demo I gave, whenever it was, a couple of months ago, that was a neural network doing image classification. There's only 2 billion parameters. That's as much as you can fit in. So that's a problem that we're addressing soon. We're going from 32-bit WASM to 64-bit WASM. And then we can, for example, raise the per smart contract memory limit to, say, main memory limit to, say, 16 gig, and then you can fit like a Mistral, which is a large language model. That's what we're trying to get to. So you can have a conversation with the blockchain. There's lots of other like low-level work that goes into running it faster. So the demo I gave actually ran through consensus, which probably you wouldn't normally do. And it ran over, like, in the first instance, it ran over, I think, like 9 or 10 blocks, something like that. And it involved like 20 billion WASM instructions, which gives you an idea of how much compute you've got to bring on chain to do this kind of thing. So, it's going to be optimized, made to run faster. At some point, we're looking at ways that we can incorporate GPUs into internet computer node machines, which is pretty difficult because the way they do computation is non-deterministic. So we have to find ways of making that deterministic. So that's the kind of work we're doing.
You and Austin seem to share some thoughts on what is limiting some scalability from a memory throughput today.
Oh, I mean, like when you're dealing with AI agent work, like it's incredibly computational and memory intensive. So
really
it's a lot of work to get that stuff.
So curious, you're doing all this work today to make sure that all of these like models and systems work on chain. What would be an ideal partnership? Like let's go along. Like what would be an ideal partnership and use case that could come out of all of this work that we would be using your infrastructure on the back end to run our daily applications?
So I think running AI on a blockchain is generally a very powerful thing to do because it becomes tamper-proof, which means effectively it's kind of hack-proof. And it's unstoppable. And I think in the future, there'll be these big centralized large language models like GPT, but there are also going to be millions of models that are run specifically to optimize one company or do something like rank content in a Web3 service and so on. And it's going to be very important that these models can't get hacked because they're going to have access to all this really sensitive data. And people are going to come to rely on them, so it's very important that they're unstoppable, which is what a blockchain delivers. But in terms of the blockchain space and obvious things you can do, autonomous KYC, so you can imagine if you've got an API that you can verify a document's real, now you could have an AI smart contract that can match somebody's face to the document. Another one is you could have an AI smart contract that enumerates Ethereum, matching the code hash to the code on GitHub, and automatically audits the code, looking for reentrancy, backdoors, malware, and so on. And then if it finds the smart contract's okay, it can like certify it and see. You could go to Etherscan and see. I mean, today Etherscan will show you the Solidity code, right? But not many people can read Solidity code or have the time to do it. So you could like check mark it and say, hey, audited by AI, didn't find any problems.
What about the Solana side, Austin?
Yeah, there's sort of 3 domains that have been worked on throughout 2024 and will kind of continue through the rest of the year. One of the core theses we have is that no one at the Solana Foundation, none of the core engineers have any greater ideas of what should be done on chain than any developer is building in the ecosystem. And this is like something I think you see with a lot of ecosystems. There's very prescriptive use cases coming down from founders and sort of leaders of the organizations on how this network should be used. And the core thesis, and I'll get to what the actual innovations are, but the core thesis is every time you make stuff 10 times faster or 10 times cheaper, you unlock totally new use cases that no one predicted would happen. And like the classic example of this is, who would have thought when the iPhone launched with 3G connectivity, it would change dating forever? Right? Like no one looked at Steve Jobs and said, ah, yes, Tinder is going to come out of that thing. But like, so these changes happen in ways that we can never anticipate. The idea of YouTube would have been impossible to think of in a dial-up or even DSL internet world because the cost of bandwidth was just too high. So the work we tend to focus on is work like FireDancer, which is the first net new validator client for the Solana blockchain. The current implementation is in Rust. This is an implementation in C, built with different dependency trees by a different independent organization. And so that's focused on two things. One is really scaling out the network to support in one global state machine 1 million transactions per second within 2 years is sort of the goal of that project. And the first version of that will be launching in Q4 of this year. The work on token extensions, which is a new smart contract framework on Solana. It's a new canonical token program that's really designed so you never have to launch a private blockchain or a private L2 to support fully KYC'd and permissioned tokens if that's what you're looking to build. This is really designed to meet the needs of institutions that want to build things on chain, but currently don't have the tooling to do, so they end up building either a whole custom smart contract stack which breaks composability, which is what you saw with the Biddle Fund at BlackRock, or they end up launching on private subnets or private L2s where there's really no liquidity, there's no composability, there's no users, and the last thing these institutions want to do is have to build a community. They want to just launch financial products and have people be able to interact and build with those. And the last one is work on things like state compression, which reduce the cost of using the chain from an on-chain data and storage perspective. I don't mean storage like file hosting, like Filecoin or something like that, but literally creating and reserving accounts on chain for if you're a company and you want to bring 450 million users online, that is an expensive operation on pretty much every blockchain today just from a storage perspective. And so using these alternative tools and technologies to bring that cost down to a place where it matches Web 2 economics and is much more affordable for someone to do. And so we tend to work as low to the machine level as possible, stay out of the application layer, stay out of the standard layer as much as possible, to make sure that innovation can happen there, and really just focus on making the entire system faster.
So I want to focus a little bit more on one particular use case. We had a DeFi summer a few summers ago at this point, and with all of these recent innovations, DeFi can start looking very different, whether it's with token extensions or having AI models helping us run some of these DeFi LLMs. We can also have sharding, facilitating all of this feature like scalability and how many people are transacting on chain. So want to dive into a little bit more, and I realize there are different levels of focus on DeFi within your respective ecosystem, so we don't have to make this ecosystem specific. Just want to see what you think DeFi will look for in the next, whether it's institutional adoption or whatever we see coming in the next couple of years for DeFi.
Yeah, I mean, so DeFi is like the original product market fit of blockchain after payments. And so there's a lot of cool new stuff happening as well, but the core still remains DeFi today. And I think that will probably continue in large part because the core of most economies is financial systems, right? And so these things are intricately linked, and you see DeFi integrated into games, into all sorts of other things. But it's DeFi all the way down at the end of the day. And the killer thing for DeFi and blockchain is atomic composability. It's the ability for one piece of state to establish trust with another piece of state without having to trust anything else, because all that data exists in the same user space. This is what made Ethereum 1.0 so powerful. This is what made DeFi on the L2 ecosystems very difficult to work with. And so when you can keep everything in one global state, it reduces the number of trust assumptions you have to make. It reduces the amount of bridges you have to use, because bridges are systems of vulnerabilities. And so I think the future of DeFi is sort of an expansion on a usability perspective. Fundamentally, E-Trade and Robinhood are the exact same thing. It's just a new UX paradigm, and that new UX paradigm was enough to make Robinhood take off when E-Trade never really took off with users. but the core technology behind there is functionally the same. And so I think a lot of the next wave of DeFi is going to be on the user level. It's going to be on changing interface paradigms. It's going to be making these things a little bit more friendly sometimes. It's increasing the ability to have cross-program invocations and calls between stuff. But again, most of this really requires stuff to be operating in one global state. And so that's where we think like there is a world maybe, you know, like the classic answer that you get from people all the time is like, well, how can Solana scale to 1 billion transactions per second with one global state? And the answer is it probably can't, but that's like a 5-10 year problem. And so we shouldn't be focused today on fracturing state, creating multiple layers, creating different shards, until we've had each of those shards able to basically max out what's physically possible today on computers with high bandwidth interconnect. And once you've done that, sure, we can look at various types of other types of scaling solutions. But you lose so much of the magic and power of DeFi when you fracture the state into multiple layers. And so I think that we'll see DeFi continue to exist most strongly in execution environments which are fully integrated.
So I'll start with you on the next question, Dominic. Probably best for us to get a little bit closer to wrap up, because there'll be many ideas on this one, but what's the state of crypto that you would be proud to see unfold over the next 5 years? And what do you think are some of the current blockers into achieving that vision beyond the onboarding experience we just talked about?
Well, I think, you know, one question has always been, will there be different kinds of blockchain, or will this just be a race for, you know, performance scale and so on? I think probably there will be different kinds of blockchain because there are sort of fundamental trade-offs that you can't avoid. So internet computer is very focused on compute, and you know, it's a single environment. Internally there are subnets, but the smart contracts can't see them. It's processing about 360,000 Ethereum equivalent transactions a second right now. So there's a lot of compute happening on the internet computer blockchain. But those smart contracts don't work exactly the same way as smart contracts on Ethereum. So they're asynchronous. Your code looks like it's synchronous, but they're asynchronous. And that makes some things in DeFi a bit harder. Certainly, it's easier to do DeFi with the synchronous model that Solana has. And so, you know, we're focusing on integrating with other blockchains. So we have a thing called Chain Fusion, technical name Chain Key. And it means that the internet computer network can directly interoperate with other blockchains without a bridge. So hosts a thing called Chain Key Bitcoin, and people are sending it in chat messages using sort of Web3 social media, 1.5 second finality, near zero cost. Recently done the same thing with Ethereum and ERC20, and looking forward to bringing on chains like Solana 2. So, you know, it might be that those kind of fully on-chain social media experiences do interact with DeFi on the internet computer, and indeed there's a order book exchanges running on the internet computer, but that they also very extensively integrate with DeFi on other chains, because there are these fundamental trade-offs. So I think we'll begin to see that those kind of things, the answers to those kind of things elicited. It was interesting talking to Austin and listening to the latest ways that Solana is optimizing their chain to scale vertically and just making it faster and more efficient. And, so I think, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, how the ecosystem evolves, what the technical solutions, what different technical approaches people take are, and just watching the evolutionary tree of blockchain grow. I think it's going to be fascinating.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you to our panelists as well for a good discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.